Hello everybody and welcome back to the United Stand. This is Ruben Amorim's press conference reaction to the pre-match press conference before a very defining game for Ruben Amorim, in my opinion. The last game before an international break where he's going into it with quite a few poor results. Under his belt, it's newly promoted Sunderland that have done very well so far in the Premier League at Old Trafford. It's a game that on paper Manchester United are expected to win, but Ruben Amorim really does have to win this game to remain support of the fan base, but also of the backing of Ineos and the management and the hierarchy at Manchester United. How does he respond to critics? He's been asked about Wayne Rooney's comments, Gary Neville's comments, criticising his system, criticising the club. He's also been asked about whether the players are understanding Ruben Amorim, what he's asking from them. A few responses that did worry me slightly in the way that he's responding to certain questions. It feels like he is very, very stubborn on a certain viewpoint that I personally do not agree with. I don't know if you guys agree with it. We want it to work out. We want him to be successful. But without some tweaks, is it going to happen? Well, he's answered them questions. No updates on injuries, which is a little bit frustrating, or, you know, who's available in the squad. I'd like to know a little bit in Majraoui. Maybe that'll come out in the embargoed section. But let's get into what Ruben Amorim had to say. He was very defiant in his press conference, very defiant, standing up for his system, standing up for his beliefs, and we'll get into that now. So starting off on a little bit of a more serious subject, I wanted to bring this in straight away early in on the show, because if you've not yet seen, Manchester United will be holding a minute's silence and wearing black armbands at the start before the game kicks off tomorrow at Old Trafford in tribute of the victims of yesterday's terrorist attack in Manchester, you know, in the city of Manchester. And I just want to say, what a truly devastating terrorist attack. It's horrible to hear about, and our thoughts go out to all of the victims, of course, and anybody affected by that. But Ruben Amorim did get asked on that, and you know, his thoughts on how Manchester United are going to hold tribute to that. And he said, a crazy world that we are living in at the moment. A lot of these things are happening. Of course, our sympathy is for the victims and we will pay tribute tomorrow. It's crazy world in this moment. And I have to agree with Ruben Amorim there. I mean, taking the football out of it, it's just a horrific thing that has happened. It shouldn't be happening, but this is the world that we're living in, and we're going to pay tribute to that tomorrow. I'll be at Old Trafford doing so in the ground, and I think, you know, everybody watching that game will pay tribute as well. So that's something that Manchester United will be doing before the game kicks off tomorrow. But then he gets asked about Sunderland. He gets asked on Sunderland as a team, obviously doing very well in the Premier League right now, and their manager as well, the system that they play and the way that they play. And he said this. It's interesting because it's got to that point with Ruben Amorim, and tell me if I'm reading into it a little bit much, but with every answer that he puts out there to any question, the subtle points in there and slight digs in his beliefs and how strong he is in his beliefs, and slight excuses as well for where Manchester United are. So he said this: it's going to be a really tough match. They are doing really well. When you see their games, they draw with one less player in the final of the game. They draw a point and then win in a final play against Brentford. I think the details are changing a lot of the table, so we need to pay attention to that. It's a team that plays really well with a clear system, 4-3-3, with a lot of rotations on the side of the pitch. They will be confident and know that we are under pressure. We need to be prepared for that. It will be a tough match. So in that, all he's got asked about is, what do you think about Sunderland? You know, they've done well since they've been promoted. And straight away, he's bringing up that point, hammering it home, that minor details affect the table. Little marginal gains affect the table. They were down to 10 men. They managed to go and draw that game. And then in the final play against Brentford, they managed to get something over the line. And it's like, yeah, because they're a team that's set up to have that winning mentality right until the end. Of course, Manchester United, you know, they could have games go for them. We got a penalty in the last minute against Burnley. Sometimes you have games go for you. Sometimes you have games go against you. Against Brentford, we had that penalty. Bruno Fernandes missed it, unfortunately. But, okay, yeah, it was a deserved penalty, and we actually should have had a red card on the back of that. There is gains in football. Sometimes you lose them. Sometimes you win them fine margins. But when you are 11 months into a season, not into a season, imagine, 11 months into a season. When you're 11 months into your managerial tenure at a football club and you've not managed to get back-to-back wins, that isn't down to marginal wins and gains. That isn't down to, little decisions that haven't gone your way, little things that have happened where that flick on happened and you managed to get a goal, even though the game's against you in that moment in time. When you've not got back-to-back wins in 11 months, it's something underlying that's an issue. Of course, Manchester United have lost out so far this season. I saw the clip of Ginge doing the rounds about how if it wasn't for Bayern making a mistake against Arsenal, we could have drawn that game. If it wasn't for missing that penalty against Fulham, we would have gone on to win that game. If it wasn't for Onana being completely incompetent, we wouldn't have lost that Grimsby game. If it wasn't for Bruno missing the penalty against Brentford, it could have gone the other way. There's excuses that everyone makes, but every team encounters decisions not go their way, things not go their way in games. You've got to make your own luck a lot of the time. And for me, Manchester United are not doing enough in games to go out there and win them. We never go and blow teams away. We never, if we have a setback, if we have something don't go our way, we miss a chance, we hit the post or a decision doesn't go our way or we concede a goal, heads drop. And sometimes you feel in a game that even though you need to go and score a goal, even though you need to, keep a goal out, keep yourself from conceding a goal, you can feel it in the air that Manchester United just aren't going to do that. Is it due to the mentality that's run through the culture of the club for a long time? I don't know, but it is the manager's job to solve that issue. You can't keep saying marginal gains. You can't keep referring back to sometimes things don't go your way. Well, if I would have had an experienced goalkeeper, well, if I would have had a midfielder and things like that, if we wouldn't have had Cunha and Mount injured, you can't fall back on excuse after excuse when you are performing this poorly. You've got to find a way to go out there and win games no matter the circumstances. Not every single one's going to go your way. You can walk away from a game and be like, you know what, we played really, really well. We deserved way more out of that. And you can be not happy because you've not won a game, but you can be content in the way that you performed. But okay, yeah, we have had stuff go against us, we've had stuff go for us, and stuff that's happened in the summer has negatively impacted the start of the season. Not going and having an experienced goalkeeper to use, not having a midfielder, not maybe investing in your wing-backs, not being able to bring your striker in quick enough and having that experience. However, the only game this season that I walk away from, and I will say wholeheartedly, we absolutely deserved more points out of that game, would be the Arsenal one on the opening day of the season. You can't keep harping back to that. We're 6 games in now. Yeah, the Fulham one, we could have had more, but in the end, we deserved a draw out of it. We did. Brentford blew us away. We conceded some sloppy goals in that and we didn't look like scoring. You can look at XG, you can look at stats, you can say, oh, well, we've done it in the Arsenal game. That's one game. That's one game. Out of the season where you deserved more. I don't think you can come back to, this little things go your way when you're being asked about the way Sunderland play, and again kind of putting that out there to send a message. I get it, but also no, I don't get it, because Manchester United have not been good enough on the pitch this season. That's why we're not getting the points that we should be doing, and it's something that needs to be addressed. And he keeps specifically bringing up the Arsenal game, which he did in a minute as well, and it's like, yeah, we played really well against Arsenal. It was the opening day of the season. That was in August. We've dwindled since then. And, if we played like that every single game from that point, I would sit here and say, the system actually is working. We're just not getting the final touches that we're not getting that cherry on top of the cake to going out there and getting what we deserve. Maybe we do just need like 1 or 2 more signings. But it's not been like that for every game this season, and we've deserved to lose, we've deserved to draw. That's the way it's been. So yeah, he's very complimentary of Sunderland, although kind of saying the Premier League table can be massively affected by small little things that go for you or go against you, and it can be, but you've got to make your own luck in this world. I mean, Sunderland are 5th. Sunderland are 5th, and they're on 11 points. They're 1 point behind Crystal Palace. They're 2 points behind Arsenal. They're 4 points behind Liverpool. They're doing really well, considering they've just come up from the Championship. I know they've spent money, but the ambition, their manager, they're going to be a tough team to play against at Old Trafford. He also says it's not just the table and the results, which are in the end what matters the most, but the way they play. They have a clear identity, they have a very good manager, and they have a good team. Amorim then gets asked on consistency, and keep getting your comments in, by the way. I can see a couple super chats coming in. I'm going to address them in a second, get all your thoughts in, let's react together. Amorim on the consistency of Manchester United. He says, we have already talked about that. If you see, during the 6 games this season, we are not always the same in the small things. More in the way that we play, all the effort that we put in, the maximum effort into every single thing. I think it's not the same and it's different in matches. We have to find that balance and it will change everything for us. So basically there, what he's saying is some games we play at our maximum and we do things the right way, i.e. the Arsenal game. That's the only one where I can say I'm completely happy with that performance. Even the Chelsea one, it was a good win. We started well, but the second half, it was questionable. It was. Like, we could have easily conceded and ended up drawing that game when we never should have. We didn't, so I'll allow it. But the only one that was a fully convincing performance for me was actually the Arsenal game, the one that we lost. So with that, you know, he's saying the players every single game, they don't turn up in the same way. You'll turn up against, you know, Chelsea at Old Trafford. At Brentford, you won't turn up and do things in the right way and put the same effort in. You'll turn up on the opening day of the season against Arsenal, but then the following game, when you're at Fulham away, you're not going to put the exact same effort in and the same thought process into every single move. He's basically saying the consistency from the players and the effort levels don't match up every single game, and that's what's costing us and that's what's making this team inconsistent. Understand that point. I do actually agree with that, and we've been doing it for years. It's so frustrating. And that's not just on the manager, it's really not. Like, that is on the squad and the culture behind the scenes. The squad's changed in parts. There's obviously still some core players there. But I don't know what it is, but Manchester United over recent years, it has literally been, you know, you'll win a game that's a tough game on paper, usually at Old Trafford, because you can't hide from the Old Trafford crowd. The away support for Manchester United, by the way, deserves medal after medal after medal. I know, you know, not every fan is in it for the glory and you follow your team no matter what, but wow, the amount of away games where we've shirked responsibility when our away fans go everywhere, all over the country, and give that all, and the best away fans in the country. At Old Trafford, you can't hide. It's a big game. You want to be up for it. Usually they're the games we turn up in, especially under Ruben Amorim. But then you'll have Manchester United turn up, and it's under multiple different managers. And then you say, oh, we've got a good run now. You know, you've got West Ham, you've got Brentford, you've got Wolves. If we can get a run going now, we're only a few points off top 5. We're only a few points off, you know, 4th or whatever. And then we collapse and we don't do the right things, we don't do the basics, and you're looking at the table and you're like, how did we drop points in that game, after we just kind of came back in a game that was probably on paper harder for us to win. So that's not just an Amorim thing, that is a squad thing, it's a mentality thing at Manchester United, and it is, you know, slightly worrying. God, I've just seen the screen on YouTube. Is it me, or am I way more zoomed in than I usually am? It's like my face is like here. Don't know what's going on there. Why am I so zoomed in? It's so very zoomed in. Sorry, everyone, to be that zoomed into my face. Tayuk87 says, you seem to be Ruben Amorim out. The system isn't the issue. I'm not Ruben Amorim out. I am very extremely worried about the fact that we can't put back-to-back wins together and we can't seem to win games. And there's been only one convincing performance from me this season, and that was the Arsenal one, which we lost, where Arsenal weren't even on their A game. I never want a manager to be sacked. I really don't. I want Ruben Amorim to turn it around. I want him to adapt. I want him to up his game, and for us to, and the team to up the game, and for us to, I want us nothing more to go and smash Sunderland out the park 4-0, go on a winning run, and everything's happy. And, you know, we end up turning things around. We look back at this period and we're like, do you know what? I'm glad we got through that, because, you know, now look at us. But I'm also not just going to live here in blind hope. There's been very little signs that things are going to change, and I'm genuinely worried about Manchester United being in a bottom of the table battle. I said it before and I'll say it again. We're closer to playing Millwall than Real Madrid right now. That is where we're at. Just in terms of our trajectory, that worries me, and it's no way is it all Ruben Amorim's fault. I'm not naive. I'm not one of them people that thinks, oh, everything's the manager's fault. It's not. If Ruben Amorim went and another manager came in, there'd still be issues. Absolutely. There's issues greater than the manager at Manchester United. I do believe that need to be solved. However, there's levels, as I've said it before, to needing time and failure. And Amorim's point record is bottom of the barrel. It really is. It's not a good look where we're at right now in terms of 34 points out of 33 Premier League games, failure to get back-to-back wins in the Premier League 11 months in, 8 away games now without a win. They're things you've got to look at and you think, if this carries on, where will we be at? Do you know what I mean? You've got to look at the season as a whole. And my first priority is Manchester United. And I want us to win games and I want us to play well. And I just don't see that changing anytime soon based off of what I've seen already. I hope it changes. Clayton Daniel says, we keep blaming the system, but these players need to do more. Yeah, absolutely. This is the thing. People think in this day and age, I don't know if you feel like this, guys. Everyone's so extreme. You say one thing and it's like, no, you must think that. I seen it. I seen that tweet ages ago, and I bring it up all the time. But you could tweet out on X, I really, really love pancakes. I love pancakes. I can't wait to have pancakes for breakfast. And the top reply would be, oh my gosh, Beth must absolutely hate waffles. She must absolutely hate waffles. She said she loved pancakes. But in reality, if I don't think Ruben Amorim at this moment in time is performing at a good enough level to be Manchester United manager, that doesn't automatically mean that I think all the players are absolutely fine and it's just the manager's fault. Players aren't accountable. Of course the players are accountable. They put on the shirt, they're at the football club, they go out on the pitch, they've underperformed, some of them have underperformed under previous managers, and we've seen the heights that some of them can hit, and we've seen the fact that they don't do that every week. We watch the game. You can see what effort levels the players are putting in, when they turn up, when they don't, and you can see the mentality of the players. Some of the players in that squad, I genuinely do believe, could be doing so much better under a different manager. I believe that, under a different system. But I also believe that some of the players in that squad are way too inconsistent, aren't good enough, and, maybe don't have the mentality to play for a club like Manchester United. There can be two things can be possible at the same time. Just because you think the manager's underperforming doesn't mean you think everything's okay with the players. Players are underperforming as well, absolutely, and I think most of them would stand up and admit that. Tom McBride says, what does expected goals even mean? Woke nonsense. Expected goals, obviously, the clue's in the name. Goals that you're expected to score in a game based off, the chances that you're making. And you've also got to remember, penalties, 2 penalties missed, that goes towards expected goals. At Sesko having 3 shots at once before he scores, that goes towards expected goals. Obviously, stats can be really good, and some football clubs are literally, their lifeblood is based on stats. I know Brentford's recruitment is massively dominated by stats and the system that they have. A lot of football clubs do have that system and it works really well for them. However, nothing beats the eye test, I think, with football. So that's definitely something that I would take into consideration. Awais says, Queen Beth zoomed in, magical day for us. Oh, you've had a word with the producer already. Get that zoom on, haven't you? I don't know why you do that, but thank you very much, Awais, for your super chat. There's also a poll going just before we get on to the rest of Amorim's quotes. Predictions: Man United win, draw, or Sunderland win. Do you know what? I used to predict a win every single game. It's really hard for me nowadays to look at that. The fact I'm going into this game not confident against Sunderland at home, and I know Sunderland have started well, but it says it all, really. Man United fans going into Sunderland at home when they're newly promoted, thinking, I can see a draw. But it should be a win. It should be a win. There shouldn't even be a second thought to it. We've got the poll. I want to see what you guys are saying, but while I'm waiting for that to come in, I'll read you out the next bit from Amorim, because this is really, really interesting, and that is Ruben Amorim's response to ex-players, calling out the football club, maybe criticising him and his team a little bit on Wayne Rooney and Gary Neville. Now, Wayne Rooney and Gary Neville both had different things to say. Gary Neville was pretty critical of Amorim, and Wayne Rooney was pretty critical of the club as a whole. The ownership's not coming out and speaking about the direction of the club. A lot of Manchester United players aren't fit to wear the shirt. They're not doing enough work when they're on the pitch. And he said the club was unrecognisable. So Amorim got asked about the criticism. The journalist didn't go into detail about what criticism to respond to. He just said the comments from Rooney and Neville. And he said it's this. He said, "It's normal. We cannot run away from results. And then you have the baggage from last season. Last season doesn't matter to me. In relation to the system, we have already spoke about that. We had 6 games this season and we have lost 3. And if we lost against Arsenal, was it because of the system? It's your job to make the opinions. When you saw the game against City, was the first thing that you thought when the game started was the system? I don't think you thought about the system in that moment. And Brentford, we concede goals, create chances, and that is nothing to do with the system. That is my opinion. I'm not saying this team won't do better in a different system. That's not my point. My point is, if I look at the games we didn't win, the most important thing when I watch the game is not that we lost because of the system. That is my opinion, and then people have different opinions, and that is okay." So Ruben Amorim massively hits back at all of his critics, saying that the system is the problem. And he's made it very clear there, not just to the ex-players that have criticised his system, but everybody in the media right now who is criticising Ruben Amorim's system. Most people, I won't say everybody, but I'd say the majority of Manchester United fans and football fans and pundits are criticising Ruben Amorim's system in this moment in time. And what he's basically saying, again, he's going back to it, that we are conceding goals, yes, we're not performing at the highest level, and people have every right to judge us for that. Of course they do, and he accepts that and he understands that, and that's a good thing. But he's saying the way that we're conceding goals, you could do it in a different system. What he's basically doing is calling out his players for being sloppy. We're conceding sloppy goals and we're not doing the right things, and it's not because of the system, it's because of the in-game principles, and it's because of individual errors, switching off, disorganisation, however you want to pinpoint it. It's not because of his tactics, is what he's trying to say. It's not because of the tactical setup. It's because of the in-game decision-making from these players. That's what he's saying when he's looking at the game. And my question to that would be, why do you keep starting the same players every game then? If the players that you are putting out on the pitch are not delivering the tactics that you are setting them out with, the in-game principles that you are setting them out with, if they're not delivering the way you want to play in that system to the standards that you're setting, why are you picking the same players every week? So, okay, yeah, it can be a different variation. And, sometimes there's minor tweaks and changes, there's suspensions, there's injuries. But he's there saying it's not the system that's the issue, it's everything else. Organisation, mentality. It's not outright said it's organisation and mentality, but that's what it leads you to. Is it not having the right personnel? Is it the fact that we're switching off, sloppy mistakes, mentality not being strong enough? What is it? Why can't we score goals, Ruben? I would have loved the journalist to follow up being, okay, yeah, you're conceding, okay, I can understand you said you're conceding goals not due to the system, and I get that. Our keeper has been shocking, let's be honest. Bayindir was at fault in the Arsenal game, and Arna is, when he was still here, he had some howlers as well. And then Bayindir, it wasn't completely at fault at the Brentford game. The game was already gone, but that third goal was really shocking. And was it what game was it? The City game when Bayindir had one-on-one with Haaland, and it was just, his position was terrible. The keeper's let him down in terms of conceding goals. We have switched off at times. We've offset pieces. We've been horrendous, which, you can train all week, but players have got to take responsibility in the box. I get all that. But I would love the journalist to follow up and be like, what about scoring goals, Ruben? Because, we can talk about XG all day long. We can talk about chances created, but when you actually watch Manchester United, they don't look like they're going to score goals. What's that down to? Is that down to the system? Is that down to other aspects? What is that down to? I would have loved to hear his response to that. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. I get where he's coming from. I do, because I think we have conceded some goals that are just really silly. Individual errors, mistakes, switching off. The keeper does not help whatsoever. But also, we've also conceded goals because midfield players have lost the runners who aren't used to playing as deep line midfield players. we're also not scoring as many goals. You've got your best chance creator in the team playing in a deeper position than Dorgu and Dalot. That doesn't make sense to me. So there's things that players are responsible for that isn't down to the system, but there's also areas of that system where I look in it and I'm like, how can you not look at the system when you're decision making? You're expecting to score goals, but you're playing players like Dorgu and Dalot in higher up positions, in more attacking positions than your best player and chance creator, Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes didn't put a single pass into Sesko in that Brentford game. Why is that? I mean, some people say it's because he's selfish, he's trying the Hollywood ball. It's not because of that. It's because he's playing deep in the midfield when he should be higher up the pitch. So you can argue both points, but I think it's a mix, to be honest with you. I think it's a mix of the system not being adaptable, Ruben Amorim staying firm on certain team selections, which I don't agree with, and also the players as well. Of course, the players as well, and the way they approach games, the switching off, the concentration, all that. Some super chats coming in there as well. Sanil Dewan says we need to play 3 midfielders, not 2 under 4-3-3. I would love to see 3 midfielders in the team. I think that, again, he speaks about the system, but 2 midfielders when your midfield's weak as it is, and it's tough to make that work. It's like when we lined up for the Brentford game. The attack I was happy with. The defence, even though they didn't perform very well, I could understand it, and they played really well together in the Chelsea game. That 4 across the middle, the Dorgu, Ugarte, Bruno, Dalot, it's just not strong enough 4 across the pitch. It's just not. Bruno's not a deep line midfielder. He's one of the best cams in the league, and he's playing as a deep line midfielder. Ugarte is, I know we didn't really have any other option because Casemiro was injured, but Ugarte's been massively inconsistent ever since he's got here. Dorgu, his heart's in the right place and he's got potential, but his first touch and his attacking output, it's so often he's got the ball in the final third and it just leads to nothing, and that's opportunities wasted. And then Dalot, I know we didn't really have much option because Ahmad and Mazraoui Mazraoui's injured, Ahmad was away for personal reasons, but he'd just come back and it was like he was playing against us. You could have easily adapted that in that game. You didn't have to play that way. You could have adapted that and we didn't, and that's where it is going to kind of, you are going to look at that and think you could have made some adaptations. Ian Tracy says Amorim is far from the only issue, but regardless of what is going on, his record is indefensible. We've gotten worse and we've got no signs of improvement. Travis Johnson says, sounds like we need a psychologist or someone to work with the players on their mentality. Didn't Ineos fire that person when they came in? Yeah, do you remember that news story that everyone was laughing at? I wasn't laughing at it, to be honest with you, but there's certain people were laughing at the fact that we were paying, what was it, like £700,000 a year or something along them lines for a psychologist, or was it? I don't know exactly how much money it was. I'm being told that it was lower than that, but it was Sir Jim Ratcliffe said it in an interview flippantly that he came in and he found out that they were paying a certain amount of money for a sports psychologist or whatever, and he kind of laughed at it. But when you actually look back at the track record of the psychologist, they were really kind of crucial to certain wins that we've had, penalty shootouts, particular penalties in games, set pieces, big moments where you can kind of predict the body language of how each team is going to play by looking at recent games, and you kind of look through her CV and it was actually really good. But I think we will obviously have things in place at the club for the mental side of things, but it's clearly not working in the way it should be, because I do think the mentality is quite fragile inside the football club, and how you improve that and get to the bottom of that's something for the football hierarchy to look into massively. It's something I think we've not addressed for a long period of time where we've needed to, and it's kind of gone, but it's a massive part of sport that needs addressing. It's football club for sure. Lee Cape Town says, hi Beth, hope you're all well. As a former pro footballer, I'm not interested in stats. My eyes are good enough. Unfortunately, our midfield is not, and that is our problem. Mar says, Bruno captaincy is why we lose. We have to admit it. Don't agree. Everyone said the reason we were losing is because Maguire was captain back in the day. It's not because Bruno's captain is why we're losing games, in my opinion. You can have your own opinion. It's not in mine. And even if you were going to take the captaincy off Bruno, which I wouldn't do, who would you even give it to? I think we do need more leaders in that dressing room. We need stronger mentalities in the squad for sure. But it's not the sole reason why we're losing games. It's like how people think the sole reason that we're losing games is because Bruno's playing in the midfield. He's not suited to that role, and I would much prefer him higher up the pitch, and it can be a hindrance sometimes, but it's not the only reason we're losing games. We came 15th last season and Bruno weren't in the midfield. Bruno wasn't in the midfield, he was playing in the 10. We came 15th. We couldn't win back-to-back games when Amorim came in last season either. We're not just losing, it's not, if we replace Bruno with Baleba now, we're not just going to suddenly start winning games and be a top 4 side. It's just not going to happen. There's multiple things that are wrong. Multiple. Not just that. The K-Stone says, never seen a manager defend his system this much. If it works, the results should show. The best managers don't preach systems. They let the football do the talking. Nearly a year in and no progress. And Robert says, Amorim needs to get a player inverting into the pivot position so he can let Bruno vacate the space, get him into the final third, or he is wasted. I agree, and I've seen Chelsea do that before, where one of the fullbacks inverts either Cucurella or Reece James and goes into the midfield, and it really helps strengthen their midfield area. And you know, a lot of top coaches do that now, and we've seen Ten Hag did this really well with Dalot. Dalot used to invert into the midfield, and he used to carry the ball through the midfield really well. Dalot is mad. He won Player of the Year under Ten Hag, and he was inverting into the midfield, and he was brilliant from that fullback position. Now, I don't see him ever use his best strengths. One of Dalot's best strengths is the way he can carry the ball and drive through the midfield. And we just don't see that from him. That's what I mean when I feel like a lot of players have either stagnated or regressed. But I do agree with someone inverting into that midfield to help out. I know what Amorim wants is his centre-backs to go into the midfield. He wants his centre-backs to jump in. We've heard that line so many times before. But I would like to see some inverting into there as well. But I don't know if we will. Lee Cape Town says, here is a question I need to ask everyone. It might be stupid. Does Amorim even know how to play another system? I mean, he's done his coaching badges. He will know how to play other systems, but he just won't do it. He said you have to change the man before you change the system. He's married to it. He's absolutely married to it. I don't think he'd even be in management if he had to change his system. He will know how to do it, and there is times in games where Manchester United do change a little bit. We've seen it before, but it's nowhere near enough, and he's made it very clear he doesn't want to. I think he can, but I just think he doesn't want to. Last few quotes from Amorim is giving belief to the fans. He got asked, how do the fans keep believing in you? What can you do? You have a message for them? And he said, it's not the time to say, it's the time to show. I agree with that, but we need to start seeing something pretty quick time. I can look at the games this season. For me, they're completely different. There are some things the same, some things are different. There are other things we cannot change. In the other games, we are not the same team in some details. I have nothing to say at this moment. My job is to prepare the team. And I think that's wise from Amorim. Like, what can you say? When you keep getting asked of how is this going to change, what do we need to do, and nothing is, and we keep getting poor results, you just got to let the football do the talking. You can't keep promising the world and then not delivering. You've just got to let the football do the talking, and I think that's a good answer from him on that. And then he lastly got asked, do the players understand your system? And he said this, it was disjointed against Brentford, but you cannot say one thing doesn't work when it works one weekend. When things work one day and then the other it doesn't, it is something about the way we do the same thing. We need to do the same thing in the same way, every way, and we are not doing it the same every day. Some of you guys have a different opinion, but that's okay. And it's basically the same thing as he said multiple times before. You weren't complaining about the system at Arsenal when it worked. And this is my gripe with this. And I'll say it again, and I feel like I've kind of hammered this point home here. My gripe with this is, First of all, you lost against Arsenal. We did play well. It was our most convincing performance of the season, but we did lose. Second of all, you've got 34 points out of 33 Premier League games. We've not won back-to-back games. So you're saying it works one weekend, it doesn't the next. It's once in a blue moon it works. I mean, can you even remember the wins that we've had? Burnley, Chelsea, and then Villa on the last day of the season. That was pretty meaningless. Leicester twice, I think. Southampton, just. I think Onana saved a penalty in that game. Everton when he first came in. It's like, and so you're saying you can say it works one week and it doesn't work the next. If you look at it on an overall basis, it's not working because our points tally is rock bottom basically. I mean, that league table when it was, if you took all the Premier League sides that have been in the Premier League last season and this season, we would be bottom, down there in 17th. I don't think you can go back to, well, sometimes it works. City, last season. It's just, we need to see more. We need to see more on a consistent basis for me to get on board with that idea. We've got Tom McBride saying, Sabitzer was a player I worried to see go. He was a B-Tech Caicedo, can attack, defend and give his all. We took him for granted, should have signed him. He got man of the match the other day, didn't he? In the Champions League. So did Anthony Elanga, so did Marcus Rashford, so did Rasmus Højlund. I mean, honestly, it's like someone has actually put like a spell on Manchester United at this point. And don't get me wrong, I'd really like to see other players doing well that have left in a graceful fashion. Wish them nothing but the best, players that leave in a graceful way. But I think, you know, when a player leaves Manchester United and has a good performance, it is massively like spread across everywhere. And then if they don't have a good performance, nobody talks about it. So, of course, you know, there is some players that have gone on and left, and I think to myself, you know, it was us that was the problem, and I really wish I could use them now in the way and cater to them. You know, we thought they were a bad player, but they're actually a good player, and we've just not utilised them the right way. But also, there's times where players will have a really good game, but ultimately, how consistently are they performing at that level? Sanchez says, what worries me is that we are worried and scared to see United fighting for relegation, yet we won't say Amorim out and choose a sign. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and we'll just have to see what Sir Jim does. I mean, what I will say, as much as I am worried about Manchester United, and this is the point I would leave it on, I mean, you guys have said your predictions for the weekend. The majority are going for a Manchester United winning 56%, so still positive. 14% with a draw, 30% going Sunderland. I'm going to head towards a draw. However, I'd be leaning more towards a win because we're at Old Trafford. And I know the Old Trafford crowd will be up for it, and there won't be anywhere for the team to hide. It's such an important game. What I will say, which I think is absolutely crazy, is there will actually be people on Saturday that want us to lose purely so it means Amorim goes quicker. I will never, ever, ever be one of them people. Every single time Manchester United play a game of football, I want us to win. And I live in hope that that will be the turning point. I hope Sunderland can be the turning point. I really, really do. But if Amorim wants to get me back on board, not that he probably cares what I think, but as a fan, you know, that goes to the games every week, and it doesn't matter whether you go to the games or you're getting up at 2 a.m. in Australia or whatever, but as a fan that loves his football club and wants to believe, I just need to see him do something to make me believe. Play Larmans in goal, adjust the midfield, you know, adjust things in the way you set up this team to create a more functional team that is balanced and has a better chance of going out there and playing good football and winning the game. And, you know, drop players who have been underperforming, put players in who deserve a chance, show us something. But on that note, guys, that was Ruben Amorim's press conference. Thank you everyone for tuning in and getting your comments in. It's been a blast. I was ranting and raving a little bit in there, but I'm just so passionate about us being back to our best. And I genuinely I don't think I've ever felt lower than this as a United fan. We are truly getting bantered left, right and centre. With only one game a week, I need to see wins. Like, we can't be hiding behind, you know, Europa League wins against teams in weaker leagues to kind of blind us. Like, the Premier League is bread and butter, and we need to start firing in there. Just before you go, I do have to tell you, because you've got a cracker tonight. You have got Hoffenheim is the live Bundesliga match tonight on That's Football. Goldbridge is watching the game with you, but you also get to see the live match footage as it's being played live as well. Make sure you go and head over to That's Football and watch that. Also, tomorrow, very, very, very big game for Manchester United, which feels like every game's a big game now, but we've got 6 hours of live content kicking off. You know, we've got the road trip, we've got the countdown to kick-off, we've got the watch-along, we've got the fans forum, we've got everything for you. It's the last game before yet another international break, which is gutting. As much as United drive me up the wall, I'd rather see them play than have another international break, but here we are. So make sure you stay tuned with us for that one. It's a big one. If we win, brilliant. Hopefully we see a turning point. If we lose, questions do need to be asked. And then you've got Chelsea versus Liverpool on That's Football too that day. And on Sunday, Newcastle versus Forest, which will be a cracker. Really will. Ange Postecoglou not really kicked off in the way you'd want to in Nottingham Forest, and it's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. Newcastle at home at St James's, a big game for him too. So all the content is covered, Premier League and Manchester United as well. But look, I'm going now, guys. Have a fantastic Friday. We'll be back for all the match day content tomorrow, and remember, Ricky's back tomorrow as well. So it's going to be very good. He's got a lot to say. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you on the next one.